Okay, so welcome to today's webinar with Link4 and early adopters of eInvoicing in Australia. I can see people coming in, which is great. So we'll give a minute or two for everyone to join and then we will start. Great, we have a great number of attendants and people are still coming in. Okay, it's great to see some familiar names in the attendance as well, either from government departments, the ATO, and other organizations. So let me start introducing everyone first. I would like to thank you all for being here. Start with Karen. Karen, she's strategic advisor to the ATO. She has been involved with the eInvoicing project since 2015. And she has done many implementations. She has been helping different organizations with eInvoicing implementations. We also have Jeffrey Griffith. He's the Deputy General Manager of Devonport City Council. And we would like to say that they are the first council in Australia to go live with the eInvoicing. Also, we have Prashant. He's the Peppol Project Manager in Main Roads WA, and Main Roads WA was the first government department in WA to go live with the eInvoicing. In today's webinar, we will try to take you through the journey of eInvoicing and get all the knowledge and experience we can get from the early adopters we have on the panel today, their experience and like what they can share with us to help everyone implement eInvoicing. So let's start. So I hope you can all see my screen now, which is good. So the points we will cover today, we will start with a quick introduction with what we have done, but we will also introduce to you like the eInvoicing, what's eInvoicing in a quick introduction. And then we will talk about how to prepare an eInvoicing business case within your organization, then selecting your eInvoicing access point and the implementation journey, go live and onboarding your suppliers, and then internal process and change management. We will try to redirect the questions towards our panelists, and then at the end, we will try to take your questions. So feel free to add your questions, and we will try to answer them as much as possible. So a quick introduction, like what's the eInvoicing network or Peppol? It's very similar to sending a text message from your mobile device. You need a service provider, and you send it to your receiver on the other side through a service provider as well. Each one of you can use a different service provider, so you can use Optus and your other receiver can use Telstra, for example. The same happens with eInvoicing. When you create an invoice in your accounting system, like Xero, MyBro, QuickBooks, there is a list of accredited service providers or access points by the ATO who can communicate with each other and deliver the invoice to your customer on the other side. And that customer can be a government department, federal, state, or local, or even a small business as well. Since the eInvoicing network launched earlier this year or last year, actually, I believe most of the federal government departments are on the eInvoicing now. And the government also have promised to pay their suppliers if in 5 days if they deliver an e-invoice with certain criteria to meet. State and local government are on the network as well. We know that New South Wales government, South Australian government are on the network, and now WA government, some departments are on the network like Main Roads and others. Enterprise businesses like PUC, Gas, Bunnings, Combank, and others are on the network as well. And more than 20,000 SMEs are also on the network. So it's time for everyone to join the eInvoicing network and get the benefits out of eInvoicing. I will start with questions about the eInvoicing business case, and I will ask every one of you basically start with Karen. Can you give us some feedback about the eInvoicing network and why the Australian government is keen on getting everyone on the eInvoicing network? You are on mute, Karen. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I work with the Australian government as a strategic advisor to eInvoicing. And why is the Australian government so keen? It started off some years back around looking at the productivity and improvement opportunities in the economy. When we first started it, the driver was, how do we remove unnecessary work that is being done by businesses, whether it be small or large? But over the last few years, the issue of security, data security, has become a major focus area for all of Australia, actually. So, that is another benefit that we're seeing as part of the Australian economy's benefit. The reason Australian government really wanted to support eInvoicing is really to help with the Australian digital business agenda, that is getting all our businesses onto digital platforms rather than using paper. And even, as I said to you, email and PDF are not that secure anymore. The government is so very focused on wanting to provide benefit. Now, I need to address something that some of you might be thinking, those who are not in the government. The ATO is the lead agency for the eInvoicing initiative in Australia. We were legislated by the government to be the lead agency, to become the Peppol authority representing Australia. And the reason for that is the work that we have done with the digital industry, the access points, the software providers who provide, tax accounting, e-invoicing, superannuation platforms. Those are the same ones who are working with us now on e-invoicing, and the relationship is there. And what we found was that the opportunities needed to be articulated. So we undertook a study back in 2016. And that study still holds to date, in that there were 1.2 billion invoices in Australia being transacted every year. The study showed that email and PDF invoices cost about $28 per invoice to be processed at both ends. E-invoice, as Sam explained, which is system-to-system direct connection, costs about $9. So you can see the dramatic improvement in efficiency as well as the economic cost. And that, if you multiply it all out, according to whatever the formula the study used, came out to about $2.8 billion of savings over 10 years. And, these numbers sound big. It's, once you get past 1 million, it kind of blurs in my mind. But in truth, though, it really does help each and every business in Australia, even those that are already automated. So I'm sure we're going to cover a lot more of why the government is so interested to help Australia become e-invoicing enabled. Sam.
Thanks. Thank you, Karen. Thank you. And now I'll go to Jeffrey and ask you, can you share with us some of the points you considered in preparing the business case at the Devonport City Council for e-invoicing? No, we cannot hear you, Jeffrey, now. Can you? Still no? No, unfortunately not. So until you check the audio on your side, let me go to Prashant and ask you, how did you get the buy-in from different teams involved in invoicing project at Main Roads WA?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And before I answer the question, I'll tell you what Main Roads is. So Main Roads is one of the largest, agencies in WA. We maintain almost 19,000 kilometers of roads across Western Australia. And we spend almost 3 billion in our budgets. And also in terms of our supplies and ERP system, we got huge invoices that we pay, almost 60,000 invoices that we pay every year. So we have got massive application and massive financial system that we support. And so we went from our on-prem Oracle ERP to the cloud last year. And because we did such a good work of transformation, we got given more work to do. So, we were approached by Office of Digital Government to actually trial this e-invoicing. So one of the key things about any project is about understanding why we are doing it. What is the why for it? And why was very clear. Paying supplier on time without any delay is a very important aspect for any government agency or any agency or private or public sector, because small and medium suppliers are most impacted with the cash flow situations. We can turn around and pay them quickly within 5 to 6 days, even 10 days. That's quite required, especially in COVID-19 period where businesses are struggling. We're struggling as well. So it has got a direct impact to our finances and our economy as well. So that was a given case. Now, in terms of engaging every key stakeholders, in terms of our executives, our business, our ITP team, our support partners. So it's about encouraging them to understand why we're doing it. So the why for us was to prove that main roads can deliver a capability which can be utilized to deliver outcome for our business team. So we have the very good engagement within our business, a very good engagement with the Office of Digital Government, and to be very honest, great support from ATO team in terms of providing us that clarity and that vision that we actually adopted to. So that was an entire, a teamwork. So I can see that. So that was the buying into making sure that we can have that capability to automate the payment. And that was a key aspect and turning point. So we started the work in November last year, and we are already live. The first agency to be going live with Peppol in WA on 15th of July, and we paid our first invoice in 4 hours with receiving the invoice. So that's a great benefit for us. And so when we did this work, we realized that we can get away with all the OCR processes, all invoice validation processes. And as Karen mentioned about, it's more secure, it's cost effective to use electronic system to system transaction, absolutely critical, especially when you're talking about, the recent, increase in cybersecurity attacks and cyber attacks. And most finance system and financial people get inundated with kind of bogus information or cybersecurity links sent out as an invoice. So that's cost effectiveness, secure and reliable. And for us, we are saving 2 days of processing.
That's great.
Benefits. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to find out. Thanks, Prashant, for that. I will go back to Jeffrey. Can you talk?
Hello, Sam. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
now we can hear you. That's great.
What's a virtual conference without technical issues?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
That's right. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you tell us more about DCC or Devonport City Council first, and you tell us about some of the points you considered when you were preparing the business case in the council? Being the first council to do e-invoicing definitely was not an easy decision to make and go for e-invoicing.
Yeah, certainly, Sam. Thank you very much. And hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Griffith, the Deputy General Manager at Devonport City Council, and I joined just over 4 years ago. I had a background prior to that with a large Caterpillar dealer in Western Australia as Chief Information Officer. I've had experience with e-invoicing in an earlier life. It would have been called EDI. But then it was substantially more challenging than it is today with the Peppol network. Having stepped into to Devonport 4 years ago, local government was in need of modernization, and we started a digital transformation journey 4 years ago. We've had a substantial number of projects and initiatives, of which this particular project was one, and e-invoicing was a part of a larger accounts payable automation project that we initiated. And we do with all large complex projects, we develop business cases for those projects. I implemented what's called a PMO, or Project Management Office, which you typically wouldn't find in smaller organizations such as Devonport City Council, but it's been instrumental in ensuring that this project was delivered on time, on budget, and is realizing the benefits that we intended. So we start by capturing what our functional requirements are. And in this case, we're using Technology One as our ERP system. So we needed to invest in intelligent invoicing module, as they call it, along with an investment or selection of EasyScan to leverage their OCR capability to capture data off PDFs. We included eInvoicing and engaged Link4 as part of this project. During the term of building the business case, we conduct benefits workshops. So we knew what the benefits would be. We know what the costs are, obviously, and conduct a financial analysis. We run risk workshops, change management workshops, pull together our project team, understand who our stakeholders are. And those, Sam, are just to name a few of the inputs into a business case. But we will not progress any initiative if the business case doesn't stack up, and this one's without a doubt did. And unquestionably, implementing accounts payable automation and leveraging e-invoicing really does deliver on the savings that Karen highlighted earlier. It is very costly to process invoices the way organizations have typically done over the years, and the way Devonport City Council certainly did. But since going live in May, we've substantially reduced our cost for processing invoices. Thanks, Sam.
Great, thanks, Jeffrey. And unfortunately, today we are missing one of our key customers or key organizations in the invoicing network, which is BOC Gas. They were going to join us today, but for emergency situation, they couldn't. But Karen was involved in the project from the beginning, and I would like to actually not just this project, but with other enterprise businesses joining the invoicing network. Can you give some idea about the points they consider when they prepare the business case? I'm sure it's going to be aligned with what Prashant and Jeffrey said, but definitely for enterprise businesses, they have other considerations as well.
Sam, before e-invoicing, I had a life in large multinational corporation as a chief information officer or chief productivity officer. As Jeffrey can attest to it, implementing large systems like ERPs across the organization is a big challenge and a huge cost. So some of the implementations that I've done go into hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. The approach that BOC Gas did, and by the way, BOC Gas is the first enterprise in Australia to become both able to send and receive e-invoices with help of Link4. And so I was there right from the start. They actually had an EDI project some years earlier where they had streamlined a lot of their processes. And so moving to Peppol was a very natural extension from having done that work. And just as Jeffrey described, Peppol was integrated as part of a larger automation process project that was ongoing. And, many of the clients that we've worked with, when I say we as an e-invoicing team, I still have a life outside of e-invoicing, by the way, so I still work with other private clients. They use e-invoicing, Peppol e-invoicing as a catalyst in some cases to create the change that is needed inside an organization. So the business benefits of efficiency, productivity, all that comes into play. Now, for BOC Gas, they had a huge number of customers who are still doing email, PDF, or snail mail, postal mail, and trying to get those people digitized. So having done a lot of the process automation work, the amount of money, CapEx or capital expenditure required to implement Peppol e-invoicing was a relatively modest sum, okay? And it is not a project with Peppol like an ERP implementation where you have to go flip a switch, turn off the old system, and move everything lock, stock, and barrel overnight to another system. It is something that you can do as part of your business as usual approach to onboarding your suppliers and customers. So the approach that BOC Gas and Woolworths and Bunnings and others that I'm working with is they've done that initial work as part of the CapEx, and then it becomes a business as usual onboarding of suppliers and customers. So as we speak, Link4, Sam, I believe you've got all the statistics. You're working directly with BOC Gas to onboard their customers onto the Link four-corner Peppol model. Now, having said that, in addition to productivity gains, there is a very huge movement in Australia over the last year called ESG, Environmental, Societal, and Governance Compliance. And that has been a huge driver of interest in e-invoicing, because e-invoicing really helps with all three pillars of that ESG. It helps with compliance, for example, when you're doing payment times reporting, where you don't have to discuss, argue, whatever the case may be, as to when the invoice actually got received, when it was receipted, when the goods were checked as being all okay, and when they were received to be processed, for example. So PTRS reporting, which is mandatory for all businesses over $100 million, that has been a huge, huge help to them. So that's also forming a part of the business case that we're seeing. The other business case that's coming up is, again, like I said earlier, in terms of security. One of the large businesses that I work with outside of this particular e-invoicing project, it's in a critical infrastructure industry. And it ended up that they sent money to the wrong bank account because the email has been hacked and the bank account had been changed, the processes were not tight enough, and the money went to the wrong account. And they weren't even aware of this until the vendor, the supplier, called up and says, "Hey, when should we expect the payment?" And that's when they discovered. So how do you put dollar amount on those sorts of benefits, in addition to productivity gain and the efficiency gains that both Jeff and Prashant have put on those? So, I just want to present those as additional, very important topical considerations when you're building your business cases as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for all of those points. And I can just add to this because, as you said, we have some numbers from BOC Gas. They basically gave us in the reports that they are getting paid on time with more improvement using e-invoicing, 50% improvement in late payment, and even shorter number of days in late payment as well, just because they implemented e-invoicing. So
Sam, if I may share, in addition to that, it has been publicly declared by BOC Gas that they are actually getting payments faster.
Yes.
Faster, because they're sending out e-invoices.
Yes. So we will move to the next section, which is selecting your e-invoicing access point. The ATO have done a process. They have a process to accredit access points. So number one, you should use an accredited access point by the ATO from the list. But I would go to Prashant and ask you, why choosing an Australian e-invoicing access point was important for main roads? And do you feel more comfortable knowing that your data is stored in Australia, not anywhere else?
Yeah. So I think when we were approached to do a pilot through Department of Prayer and Cabinet, which is Office of Digital Government. So we had our initial discussion in terms of our approach to this pilot. Now, we were using Oracle ERP Cloud, and we just gone live February 2021, and I was leading that project. So that discussion was how we can actually fit this e-invoicing into our existing ecosystems of what the future blueprint will look like. So we did a bit of a process modeling and a bit of high-level technical architecture in terms of how this can fit within our ecosystem, because our invoicing ecosystem is very complex. As said, we handle 50,000 plus invoices every year. And we have also processes which sits outside the ERP, which is like COFAX, which has got optical recognition, the OCR component, and also the workflow component. So it was much more view in terms of a supplier who has worked with COFAX, who is also aggregate supplier to the Peppol panel, and also have some experience and runs on the board, which can give us the comfort to the governance team, to the main road, and also a DPC and also DGov to that supplier can deliver the outcome. So we had that kind of a criteria in our mind. So we approached to the ATO panel, and we look at the panel and identify a few suppliers who have that capability. And that's how we actually selected Link4. Now, initially, our approach was that there will be a whole of government access point for whole of WA, and then we can start the pilot. So we flipped that in a context basically that let's try with the supplier and engage Link4, set up a process, and we can prove to the other agency that main roads have now capability, and it's easy to work with Link4 team, to be very honest on the record. Very much approachable, and our partners who are providing support for COFAX. So main roads, Link4, COFAX support partner, our IT team, our finance team. So we formed a good cohesive team in December, November last year, and we started our design workshops, technical design workshop, our business design workshop, requirements, as Jeffrey mentioned, very comprehensive requirements. So those things translated into what we call software architecture design documents and the project and the normal, the design, build, and testing processes. So that's how we went through. And the only reason we got Link4 because they are our ATO panel. And of course, data sovereignty is important, and also local business is also important when we procure, any services, to make sure that we employ locals, businesses as well. So that thing really sounded well. And being on the ATO panel give us the surety that all the checks has been done. Okay, so that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, thanks, Prashant, for that. And I just would like to highlight here that the ATO have done another tender process to select certain access points from the accredited access point to be on the panel, where government departments and state, federal, and local can easily select out of this list with a minimum requirements from tender requirements. Like, you don't have to go for a tender to select an access point if they are on the ATO Peppol panel as well. I will now switch to Jeffrey and ask you, did you consider previous experience with government organizations and government ERP systems like Tech1 as a factor in your decision-making at DCC?
Sam, this is not a complex answer. Yes. Look, any sort of project that Devonport City Council runs, we certainly believe that experience with local government will be beneficial. But to be completely honest, I think when it comes to e-invoicing and Peppol Network, we're talking about a standard process of accounts payable and payments. While beneficial, and certainly Link4 has that experience, which is great, it's really quite simple. And so I think that, that sort of experience that a network provider such as Link4 has can translate to any sort of organization and speak the same language and be a benefit. But in short, yes, it is a benefit.
Great, thank you so much. And back to Karen, and now we will start talking about the implementation journey now. So Karen was involved in several implementation projects, including the one we were talking about with VOC. But can you share with us some of the lessons learned or what to avoid during the implementation phase? Karen, you are on mute.
I'm mute now. Okay. First of all, I've been through many processes with helping large businesses with choosing an access point, right? The capability varied quite a bit, and the types of services they provide varied a bit. And as an independent advisor, I guess, we have very frank conversations. And a common theme would be is to choose an access point you feel you can trust and feel comfortable working with. Somebody who has experience, who can answer questions about what has gone before, and obviously don't hesitate to ask them. Somebody that you can really partner with. What I found Link4 doing for, I'll talk about VOC Guesting again, is that you guys, Sam, provided more than an access point. You actually partnered with your business to help identify who is on the Peppol directory already and trading. You helped with, creating tools and portals for VOC guests to manage their onboarding of their customers onto their network. And I've seen Sam actually work with some other businesses, helping them with onboarding, the suppliers and customers. So that would be, especially for I suppose it's not new as an EDI, but Peppol, in the concept of what we're talking about, where it's one connection gets to everybody, it's new technology in a way, and new mode of new infrastructure way of working in Australia. So we're still in the learning curve to a large degree. So work with somebody that you feel comfortable with. Now, some of the other things is, you need to start engaging with your trading partner early. If you're targeting to work with somebody, as Jeff and Prashant talked about, targeting to pilot with, start talking to them early, maybe 2 months, 3 months earlier, so that you can both start to prepare mentally and how to work with that. So in the eInvoicing team, we play what I call that eHarmony service, where we're trying to pair up people who are ready to transact the different types of target industry segments that they want to work with, and helping them to do the pilots and work together. So start thinking about what segments of the industry that you're going to target to onboard first. Maybe it's a particular subset of suppliers, or in Bunnings' case, they targeted 30-day credit term tradies who they've got as customers. And for Woolworths, they're targeting expense customers who are working on a particular system. So, be clear about how you're going to tackle the e-invoicing journey, because as I said to you before, this is not a turn on and flip everybody over overnight. It is a journey. So be clear about who you're targeting and how you're going to target and work closely with them. And I guess the other thing that you might want to think about is there are lots of small businesses and who, EDI is used predominantly by very large businesses and entities direct linking with each other. Peppol e-invoicing really helps when you're trying to get to the masses of small businesses out there. Right now we have MyOb, Xero, Intuit, Reckon. They're all e-invoicing Peppol enabled. They can send and receive e-invoices. So if you're thinking about taking that journey, maybe think about those businesses who are using those software SME providers, software providers, and target those and working with them. That might get you on the journey much quicker. And once you get that going, we noticed with the BOC gas, when this businesses started using e-invoicing, then there was an organic growth where they started transacting between themselves. So now we're starting to see that network effect that we've been trying to get. So, like mobile phones, until there was a critical mass, it wasn't really that popular, right? And e-invoicing is going through that growing journey as well. And also obviously training of how to go about processing differently is also very key. So you might think, they're all very, very fundamental, but I would say those are the key things that I would ask you to think about.
Great, thank you. And I would say that I know the project with Jeffrey and Prashant because I was involved in both projects, and there were different teams involved. So how do you manage communication between different teams? And I'm asking this question because the method you have done both is a little bit similar, but it's great to share your experience with others. So I would start with Jeffrey and how you manage communication between different teams, and was the regular meetings helpful in the project implementation phase? I just would like to highlight that we are getting questions on the Q&A, and we will try to attend to them at the end of the webinar. But please keep sending your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sam. As I mentioned earlier, I set up a project management office at the council, and I act in the capacity as that PMO manager, providing support to the project. And critical to the success of any project, and we run many, as I've said, here at Devonport over the last 4 years, is setting up all of the project collateral needed to ensure the delivery of a successful project. And that collateral, in our case, starts with setting up our communication channels. We use Microsoft Office 365 extensively. So we set up a SharePoint team site for each project, and then we set up a Microsoft Teams channel for the project team to communicate. In our case, we set up a Yammer community that we could use to reach all stakeholders across council, along with the project team, and then use Microsoft Planner to manage the actions of the project. We did have fortnightly meetings set up, which is vitally important throughout the term of the project. Obviously, the interval it will vary depending on the type of project you're running, but in this case, we went with fortnightly and ad hoc as required. And then we went live, as noted, in May, and followed up with a meeting after the fact with all vendors included. And I should mention all vendors were included in those fortnightly meetings. In our case, Technology One, EasyScan, and Link4. But we followed up with a meeting at the end just to run through lessons learned. We like to capture that not only from our internal project team, but also the vendors who provided great feedback that we use to help guide us on future projects.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that, Jeffrey. And I want to jump to the next stage, which is the go live and onboarding the suppliers. So, and I would like to ask Prashant, how you were able to keep track of the suppliers who are on the e-invoicing network with that hard. We understand that in order to find out who's on the e-invoicing network, you have to go to the Peppol directory and search one by one. Please tell us more about your experience with onboarding your suppliers or finding out who's on the e-invoicing network.
No, absolutely. Before I answer that question, I'll just quickly add on to the communication thing. You know, all the rigors of communication, the channels and the tool set is very important, but also important building a culture of trust within the team, because any digital transformation that we work with do, you need a high degree of trust within the team. Team should have confidence to go out and find out the information and report back. They have a degree of autonomy. So the culture is very important apart from all the rigor about the tools and the set. So So that's what is very critical for any digital transformation projects, to have that backing of the team and everyone working as a one. And we also use, all the similar channels in terms of the Teams and the Microsoft, communication and the portal. But we also, what we did, because this is the learning to be shared across the sector, we have created WA community of practice, where all the departments, who are part of this conversation, we catch up every fortnight, we share information as well, which is very, very important to share the knowledge across. Because if you talk invoicing, people ask, what is Peppol? So there's a lot of explanation has to do. So we're growing the ecosystem. Now, coming back to the question about the suppliers, this is absolutely critical to know how many suppliers that you have already on the network. So yeah, if you go to the Peppol directory, you can download the Excel spreadsheet and you can do it manually. But what we did, we actually downloaded all our suppliers, and with help of Link4 are able to provide a list of suppliers with all the details who were on the Peppol directly, so we can actually know how many suppliers have. So we have, I said, 6,000 plus suppliers within Main Roads. We got those information, and Link4 does our regular updates and provide that detail to us, so we don't have to do any kind of manual process. We can, the first thing I did was to do macros and download it from Peppol directly and running it across. It's like, so why bother when Link4 can provide the service to us? And absolutely fantastic. Thanks for your support.
Thank you for that. And Jeffrey, you went live, as you said, recently. And so what's your plans for onboarding suppliers?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I guess we have multiple fronts that we're approaching suppliers on. And first, we have an accounts payable team and a finance manager that are actively reaching out to our 100 plus suppliers and introducing the benefits of e-invoicing. So they're doing that across a number of channels, whether it's face-to-face, over the phone, letters going out to all those suppliers. And then Sam, and I think you can do this better justice than I can, but we've engaged Link4 to provide assistance on that front. And I know that you've got a experience in that space and a proven track record, and that might be something that you might want to introduce yourself. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. I will just touch on that point with Karen, because we have done this for BOC Gas. I can say like a joint project, and we have helped thousands of their suppliers to join the e-invoicing network. And I will try to basically cover this point quickly, and we are not trying to do any kind of favor to Link4 here. We are just trying to say that I think it's important for any organization, when you select an access point, it's not just about e-invoicing. It's about e-invoicing, it's about onboarding the suppliers, the knowledge and experience of how you can connect to this or integrate with accounting system that you're using or ERP system that you're using, but also what's happening after that. So when you start getting invoices from your suppliers, how you deal with exceptions, can the access point help you filter invoices coming without contract number, or even validate the contract number against your numbers or contract numbers for assigned to this supplier. All those issues are going to be the important things to take in consideration after you go live and in the onboarding stage. I will switch now to the last part, which is the internal process and change management. I will ask Karen first. Have you seen government entities and enterprise businesses organizing like training sessions for their teams in order to introduce e-invoicing and keep them informed? And how important the training aspect or the change management aspect within organizations to help with the e-invoicing project success? You are on mute, Karen. Please unmute.
You're asking really easy questions. The answer is yes, it's very important. And yes, you do need to do training. But when we talk about training, we're not talking about necessarily classroom training. With the advent of technology, Jeffrey described the different Microsoft and various other tools that they use. A lot of it is you can do a lot of self-service training. Each of the software providers, for example, have videos on how to and clear instructions on their website about how to and so on. And Jeffrey, even ATO has instructions on how to download stuff from Peppol directory. Wouldn't say it's the easiest to follow, but it is there, right? So the information is out there. Part of the challenge here, Sam, is the awareness internally and externally. Now, one of the things that I should have emphasized when you asked me before about what are the learnings is work together between the tech folks and the process folks, the business folks, because this is a very much a joint partnership project, and training of the new processes is extremely important. Now, ATO has created what we call communication packs. We have a forum called Champions Adoption Network, and within that is a communications community. So it's made up of large businesses, small business representatives like the COSBOA, the Ombudsman, and service providers like the MyOps and the Zeros. So all of these guys have come together and created what we called the communication pack. And it's very, very easy to read. It's about 18 pages, but it's tables. So it's, it's this is how you would respond. If this is a question, this is how you can respond. And there's also a fact sheet, 2-page fact sheet that tells you the benefits and the things to look out for and so on. And in fact, it was quite funny because the day that we released it was in February, and 2 days later, Bunnings went out with their EDM to all their customers, and we were very happy that they came back and gave us feedback that the fact sheet was quite useful. They used it as a basis on which to form their messaging to their customers. And so, coming back to training, a lot of it is about awareness. What's fundamentally different about how e-invoicing works from what used to work before? And that's really, again, about getting people to understand the benefit, the wanting to change, and that change management aspect. But in terms of training and education and awareness, obviously that all goes hand in hand together with the change management.
Great, thank you for that. And back to Prashant. So, as you know, before going live, do you think it's important to get the different teams? And again, in your case, there were different teams involved in the project. Do you get them to go through like a brief training about what the invoicing, maybe like definitely not a classroom, no one's doing classrooms now, but more of an interactive training about what the invoicing, and I'm sure you are getting lots of questions internally, and maybe you can form a picture about this point.
Yes, so first thing is that, the word Peppol e-invoicing, everyone have a question what it is. So what we did, we engaged our key stakeholders and went through a classroom session, not like a hands-on training, but kind of a community engagements forums that we talk about what the Peppol is, what the benefit is, what the process is. And when it comes to the real assessment of this, the change impact, so what we did, we call it like a change impact assessment. So looking at the current process, looking at the future process, what the change areas are, and what is the impact of the change. So we analyze the impact to the end user is almost zero, because users have no visibility whether invoice is paper, email, or Peppol or electronic, because they still see the invoice. For them, there's no impact. So there was no wider impact to the users in terms of who are approving those invoices. Yes, the person who is doing system administration, who are accounts payable, they should be knowing what specific changes are there for them to recognize is a electronic invoices. So we had a specific hands-on training session organized in partnership with our COFA support partner and Link4 in terms of how to administer the system. So that was the hands-on training. We had user guides, those things created as well. For accounts payable team, what we had is called a supplier onboarding pack assessment and the training. and also what are the subtleness in the system, what changes are in there, so to recognize that as well. So, but as far as end users, that was a seamless. There's no impacts, because what Peppol is doing is just adding additional channel or receiving the invoice, nothing else. So that's what we did, and it was very. And as what Karen said, it's not an ERP implementation. It's like you have a capability, now you grow your user base. So our user base is below 1% at the moment, and that over time it will grow. Like Karen said, that mobile phone adoption will grow over time. This will also grow. And in few years, like in 3-4 years, you'll see a lot of more suppliers will be on board, because once it gets mandated, like it's mandated for federal government agency, not for the state government or for medium and small suppliers. Once those legislative instruments are in place, you'll see the ecosystem will grow. And to be very honest, if you have got processes in place to handle the invoices in terms of the coming into your organization and process to approval and the payment, those processes are already in place, you won't have a massive impact in terms of training. But if you have got all those manual processes and you don't know what you're doing in terms of the processes, so I think this is another tool to inject and actually automate your internal processes as well. That's a good one. Yeah.
Thanks, Prashant. And I just would like to ask Karen to emphasize a point that we keep hearing recently, which is businesses are just worried because the ATO is the e-invoicing authority in Australia, that the ATO is looking at the transaction. Please emphasize and confirm to everyone that this is not happening. And as an active point, even though we can say that's not happening, no one can see the transactions or the information, but please highlight this point from your side.
Absolutely. We get that question just about every meeting, or concerns are there. ATO was chosen out of about 5 different agencies. So before I got involved with ATO as a strategic advisor, I was on the industry side. So working with the government on the other side, trying to get the government to be interested in taking on e-invoicing across all of Australia. And, when the Prime Minister of Australia and Prime Minister of New Zealand got up and talked about, we're going to do joint e-invoicing together, a lot of people got very excited. And there were about 5 different agencies who were in consideration to become Australia's Peppol, to lead Australia's Peppol effort. And ATO was chosen not because of the tax regulatory capabilities, but because of its experience in being able to implement the large-scale projects that went before it, like SuperStream, like single touch payroll, and also the fact that the culture of the ATO has changed since the current commissioner came in at the end of, towards the later part of 2013. So I was on the industry side and sat on the board of the culture change of ATO. So it was seeing through all of these changes kind of led for the Australian government, the parliament, to choose ATO to be the Peppol authority. So what the Peppol authority does is 3 things. It maintains the standards. It forms an alliance with the global open Peppol community, and it enforces and makes sure that the framework, the infrastructure is sound and serviceable for Australia, for example, as part of the accreditation. We do not see any information that is transacting in the network. So the data sits in your ERP or accounts payable system, and the target destination, whether it be customer or your supplier, their data. It's flowing. Just like telephone calls are happening as we speak, we're not sitting there listening to what people are saying. We're not sitting here monitoring what data is going from point A to point B. So I can absolutely assure you that it is not happening.
And I just would like to highlight also that the transactions, the data is encrypted in transit, in rest. So it's encrypted all the time. So
Yes.
I will try to just answer some of the questions we have now at the end of the session. So one of the questions to Prashant, and it will be to Jeffrey because it's related to process in government agencies like you or local government councils like Devonport. Do you have to do a public tender to select the e-invoicing access provider? And I'll start with Jeffrey, please.
No, no, we didn't require that. Yeah, really not required. This is a very simple, low investment initiative that didn't require a tender.
And that's because you are able to select from the ATO panel of e-invoicing service
Yeah,
providers.
exactly. That's
Okay.
correct.
Prashant, on state level, do you have to do a tender?
Yeah, so in terms of our procurement, state government and our department has a standard procurement processes. And as per the specification, this value of the contract was below the threshold. So just like go for a quotation, basically. And then we basically went to the ATO panel and went to the quotation and basically chose a Link4. So there was no kind of a tender because that value was not there to go for a tender. Yeah.
Yeah, great. A question for Karen was about what's the name of the network, and I believe this means the Champions Adoption Network.
Yes, we have a Champions Adoption Network is a network of large businesses, like brand name businesses, who have committed to, on the process of, have implemented, and we come together to figure out how do we drive e-invoicing across all of Australia. So that is co-chaired by Ramesh Kev, who's the CIO and second commissioner of ATO, and Tim Reed, who's the president of Business Council Australia. And that is the forum that I was mentioning. And underneath that is the communications community, which was looking at the messaging that I mentioned before about the key benefits. How do you go about spreading the message, educating your stakeholders?
And there is another question, I think you'll be able to answer that one as well, which is what finance software or accounting systems that's ready for Peppol? I
would like to point you to the ATO website. So, I mentioned 4. The key ones that are quite prevalent. There is a register called eInvoicing Ready Register of products which have already been Peppol enabled. So if you think your product may or may not be ready, go and look in there first. Again, it has an accreditation process. And then if it is not on there, you can talk to your software provider to see what their roadmap is to become enabled.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I can say that we know that at least the major accounting system like Zero Mark, QuickBooks are enabled in a way or another. They have capabilities either built in or not.
And then this is growing, Sam.
Yes, sure. One of the questions very specific about PDF. So I understand Peppol standards specifically exclude PDF copies of invoices, and I would say that's not correct. You can deliver a PDF copy of the invoice with an e-invoice through the Peppol network. So yeah, would like to confirm that yes, we deliver, like e-invoicing service providers or access points can deliver a copy of the invoice PDF, and I believe this is the case for even the Devonport City Council and Main Roads WA. They can confirm that they are receiving the invoices from the supplier as an e-invoice. They can see the line items in their ERP systems, but there is also a copy of the invoice PDF, because we understand still the teams within organizations still need that comfort of seeing the PDF as well. So just to cover that point. I'm conscious.
If I may add, Sam, we're noticing that in Bunnings' case, some of the customers have come back and said, we don't need the PDF anymore. We're quite comfortable with what we're getting on e-invoicing, so please stop sending.
That's great.
There are other questions. We will address them and we will get back to you if we didn't answer the question during the call. Again, thank you everyone for your time today. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks, Prashant, for sharing your experience and journey with e-invoicing. And for everyone who was on the call, thanks for your time, for being with us today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get back to us at Link4, and we'll be happy to answer any questions about e-invoicing. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for
Bye.
having us. Bye.